Hey everybody, welcome to Wind Down Wednesday. Listen, go ahead and grab your tea, get your blanket, y'all, settle in. This is our time. Once a week, every Wednesday, y'all, we meet here together, and I'm so glad that you are here with me. Y'all, what most women in perimenopause and menopause can tell me is exactly what stopped working, whether that's fasting or keto, HIIT, intermittent fasting, maybe sleep routines, or it could be stress management techniques that they've used for years. All of a sudden, none of that stuff is working. But what they cannot tell me is why it stopped working. Now, y'all, listen, that gap between knowing something changed and understanding what changed is where women often lose months, sometimes years, trying to solve the wrong problem. Hi, everybody. If you don't know me, I'm Miriam. I am a functional nutritionist and gut hormone specialist. And today, y'all, I'm going to be walking you through the metabolic pattern that a lot of people miss, okay? And that's archetype shifting, not hormone fluctuation, not just stress, archetype shifting. So by the end of this, y'all, you'll understand why you can't troubleshoot a moving system with fixed assumptions, okay? Now, here's what I noticed about women who struggle the most in perimenopause, menopause. Yeah, they are not the ones who ignored their health in their 30s. Just the opposite. These are the ones who mastered it, okay? They learned their patterns. They identified their triggers. They built systems that worked, okay? And that competence, y'all, becomes the trap. Because when something stops working, the logical response is do it better, do it longer, do it stricter, which works when the system is stable. It does, okay? But your body at, let's say, 47 is not running the same metabolic pattern or operating system that she was at 37. So let me show you what I mean, okay? Let me explain. At 37, if you skipped breakfast and you worked out, in a fasted state, your body could pull from glycogen stores, right? Without spiking cortisol. Your insulin sensitivity was intact. Your thyroid conversion was efficient. Your nervous system had recovery capacity. At 47, that same sequence triggers a completely different cascade, y'all. Fasting without metabolic readiness signals scarcity to an already cortisol dominant system. Cortisol dumps glucose, insulin spikes to clear it, but your cells are becoming insulin resistant, so glucose stays elevated. Your liver gets the signal to store, not burn, okay? Your thyroid downregulates to conserve energy. Your body interprets exercise as an additional threat, not metabolic opportunity. Same input, different interpretation, opposite outcome. Now, this is not your body being broken. I hear it all the time. This is your body being adaptive under different constraints, okay? But here's the part that costs you time. You can't see the constraints shifting in real time. You can only see that what used to work doesn't, right? So you assume user error, right? That's where that self-blaming comes in. You're not looking at it as system reorganization. So that assumption keeps you solving for discipline when the actual problem is diagnostic, okay? And here's what most women don't realize. The instability that you're experiencing, the constant trial and error, the brief improvements that don't last, the feeling that nothing works consistently, that's not your body being chaotic. I hear that so much. That's what happens when you try to stabilize a responsive system with fixed strategies, okay? Now, when the interpretation matches your actual pattern, stability holds. When it doesn't, you get what feels like chaos, okay? And without interpretation, y'all, you can't tell the difference. Most women in perimenopause, menopause, the content talks about hormone fluctuation, like it's random stuff. Estrogen goes up and down, progesterone drops. You're in the Wild West now. Y'all, that framing is just so crazy to me. And it's why so many women stay confused. That's the thing, right? Your body is not chaotic. Your body is reorganizing leadership based on specific, predictable metabolic pressure. And archetype is which system is leading your metabolic response pattern right now, not which hormones are off, which system took charge. And leadership is shifts following patterns. So they're not random, they're responsive, y'all. There are 4 primary patterns. Cortisol-wired, where HPA axis is leading. You're running stress response metabolism as baseline. You're wired but exhausted. You can't access stored energy, and you're holding weight in your midsection despite under eating, and your sleep is wrecked. The starter response is hair trigger, right? Estrogen-stuck is where your estrogen metabolism is leading. You're not clearing estrogen efficiently through your liver and your gut. The symptoms cluster around the second half of your cycle: breast tenderness, mood swings, heavy periods, histamine reactions, weight gain in the hips and the thighs. Insulin-inflamed is where insulin signaling is leading. Your cells stop listening to insulin, so you're storing everything you eat. Your cravings are relentless. Energy crashes after you eat. You have brain fog. You can't lose weight no matter how clean you eat. And then T3 downregulated is where your thyroid conversion is leading. So your body is conserving energy by reducing active thyroid hormone. Okay, you're cold, you're constipated, your hair is thinning, your brain is slow, and you need 10 or more hours of sleep, right, just to feel half functional. Now, here's what matters. These are not fixed diagnoses, okay? Leadership shifts in predictable response to load, okay? When you're running cortisol wired and you address what's actually driving that pattern, when you restore nervous system capacity and metabolic safety signaling, you stabilize there. The issue isn't that your body keeps shifting for no reason, okay? The issue is when the intervention does not match the pattern, or when you address downstream symptoms without resolving the upstream driver. Who's driving it, okay? Or what's driving it? That's when women experience what feels like constant instability. Then try something. They try something and it works briefly and then it stops. So they try something else. They have brief improvement and then they backslide. Does that sound familiar? Well, that's not your body being chaotic, okay? Let's stop saying that. That's mismatched intervention creating a pattern of temporary improvement followed by regression. When the lead system is correctly identified and addressed in the right sequence, stability holds until the load changes again. A major stress event, prolonged sleep debt, maybe significant life transition. Then leadership can shift, but that shift is readable. It's predictable, okay? And it's responsive to specific triggers. Now, when you can read the shift as it is happening, you adjust before breakdown occurs, okay? That's the difference between trying to self-manage and having interpretation. Without interpretation, you experience constant instability. Nothing holds. You're always guessing, always 3 months behind your body's actual needs. But with interpretation, you maintain stability through transitions. Shifts are caught early. Adjustments happen before symptoms escalate. Or, and this is where it gets expensive, y'all, you can be running a hybrid pattern where 2 systems are competing for dominance at the same time. Like, for example, cortisol-wired and insulin-inflamed, estrogen-stuck and T3 downregulated. And when 2 systems are leading simultaneously, their needs conflict, right? What stabilizes cortisol can spike insulin. What supports estrogen clearance can suppress thyroid further. And what improves insulin sensitivity, y'all, can overwhelm your nervous system. You don't see this in your symptoms. You just see nothing works. And without the ability to diagnose which system is leading or which two systems are competing, you guess, you try everything, you layer protocols, you add supplements, you restrict harder. And every guess that doesn't match your actual pattern costs you 3 months or more of instability. This is the part a lot of people get wrong, y'all. They assess your symptoms, they run labs, they give you a protocol: eat this, supplement that, move this way, sleep better. All true, all necessary, all correct. But if the order is wrong, you don't just fail to improve, you create instability. Now, let me show you why with a real pattern, okay, that I see a lot. A woman she comes in and she's gained 20 pounds in 18 months despite eating clean, eating cleaner than she ever have. She can't sleep. She's exhausted, but she's wired. She has brain fog. Her hair is thinning. She has digestive issues. Her labs show low progesterone, suboptimal thyroid, elevated fasting glucose, low vitamin D. The standard protocol: progesterone support, thyroid medication or support, blood sugar stabilization, and vitamin D supplementation, stress management. Sounds reasonable. Address the deficiency, support what's low. But if her nervous system is running the show, if she is metabolically defensive, then none of that lands, okay? Progesterone makes her more anxious because her body cannot metabolize it properly in a high cortisol state. Thyroid support, it speeds up a system that doesn't have the fuel or capacity to run faster, okay? Blood sugar protocols fail because cortisol keeps dumping glucose no matter what she eats. And vitamin D doesn't absorb in the system because her gut is inflamed. It's in fight or flight, okay? She does everything right, but in the wrong order. And 3 months later, she's worse, more unstable, less trust in her body. Not because the interventions were bad, okay? But because her body was not ready to receive them. Now, this is what I mean by metabolic sequencing. You cannot force nourishment into a defensive system. You cannot restore rhythm to a body running on cortisol. And you can't optimize metabolism without nervous system capacity. The order is this, y'all. Safety first, then nourishment, then rhythm, then optimization. Now, when that sequence is followed, when the lead system is addressed first and readiness is established before adding the next layer, the body stabilizes. Weight starts to release, sleep improves, energy returns, brain fog clears, and not because you added more interventions, because you added the right interventions in the sequence your body could actually receive them. That stability holds as long as the load that created the pattern doesn't return or escalate. Now, what that actually looks like: which specific foods, which movement patterns, which support strategies, at which intervals, in what sequence for your pattern. That's not something you can Google because it's not about what works in general, okay? It's about what your specific pattern needs first, second, third. And a lot of women, so many women can't see their own pattern clearly enough to sequence correctly, okay? Which is why, so many women experience this. They experience what feels like constant chaos, not because their body is chaotic, but because they're applying correct interventions in incorrect order, okay? Let me walk you through something really quickly, all right? I want to make sure I'm explaining this well. I want you to think about the last protocol you tried that did not work, okay? Whether it's fasting or keto, AIP, exercise programs, sleep supplements, whatever it was, okay? Did it fail immediately, or did it work for 2 to 4 weeks and then stop? If it failed immediately, your body was not ready for that intervention. Wrong system, wrong timing. If it worked briefly and then it stopped, you created a pattern your system could not sustain. You addressed a downstream symptom without resolving the upstream driver. Now, here's how to tell which archetype is leading for you right now, okay? I want you to ask yourself these questions. Number one, when you skip a meal, what happens? Are you shaky, anxious, you can't think? That's insulin-inflamed. Are you fine initially, then you crash later? That's cortisol-wired. Do you have no hunger signal at all? That's T3 downregulated. Does your mood tank? Are you irritable? Then that's estrogen-stuck, especially luteal phase, okay? Now, when you exercise intensely, what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours? Are you energized? You sleep better? You feel stronger? Well, you have nervous system capacity, which is rare in perimenopause and menopause. Are you exhausted, inflamed? Your sleep is worse? That's cortisol-wired or T3 downregulated. Are you ravenous? You craving sugar? That's insulin-inflamed. Does your mood crash? Does your PMS worsen? That's estrogen-stuck. Now, when you are stressed, where do you feel it first? Is it in your gut? Are you bloated, constipated, diarrhea? That's estrogen-stuck or cortisol-wired. Do you sleep? You can't fall asleep, or you stay asleep? That's cortisol-wired. Do you experience immediate fatigue? That's T3 downregulated. Is your appetite like you lose hunger, or you just can't stop eating? That's insulin-inflamed. So another question, when you eat carbs, what happens 1 to 2 hours later? Does your energy crash? Do you need to eat again? That's insulin-inflamed. Does your mood improve? Do you feel calmer? That's cortisol-wired. You needed the glucose, okay? Is there no change in energy? That's T3 downregulated. Do you experience bloating, brain fog? That's estrogen-stuck, the gut hormone connection, okay? Now, if you're tracking this in your head right now and realizing your answers aren't clean, where you're seeing multiple patterns, y'all, well, that's the point, okay? You're likely running a hybrid pattern. Now, that's two systems competing. And that's exactly why, y'all, DIY, do it yourself, troubleshooting stops working. Because hybrid patterns, y'all, require sequenced intervention that most women cannot design for themselves. Now, here's what happens when you try to self-manage a shifting archetype, okay? You optimize for the symptoms that you can see. For example, weight gain, you restrict calories, you increase exercise. Sleep issues, you try magnesium or you cut caffeine. If you have low energy, you add adaptogens, you drink more coffee. If you have brain fog, you try keto or you try nootropics. If you have digestive issues, you remove the trigger foods and you add probiotics. All logical, all potentially useful, but without knowing which system is leading, you can't predict second order effects, okay? Restricting calories, y'all, when you are cortisol wired, makes you more cortisol wired. Magnesium helps. It helps sleep if your nervous system is the issue. If your nervous system is the issue. If your nervous system is not, it does nothing. If your metabolism, estrogen metabolism is keeping you awake. Adaptogens in a cortisol dominant pattern can make you more wired. Keto in an estrogen stuck pattern can worsen hormonal clearance if your liver is already sluggish. Removing food, y'all, without addressing why your gut is reactive leaves you with an increasingly restricted diet and the same inflammation, I might add. So this, y'all, this is not your fault, okay? You're doing what makes sense based on surface symptoms, okay? But surface symptoms are downstream, and treating downstream without addressing upstream is why nothing sticks. Now, here's what upstream, I know you want to know, actually looks like. Cortisol wired upstream driver, that's nervous system perceiving threat, real or metabolic. The fix is not stress management, it's restoring the body's capacity to perceive safety at a cellular level, which requires specific signaling through feeding windows, movement type, light exposure, and nervous system inputs that most women don't have language for. Okay. Insulin-inflamed upstream driver is that looks like your cells stop responding to insulin because they've been exposed to chronically elevated glucose and insulin for months or years. The fix is not eat less sugar, it's restoring insulin sensitivity through a sequence that most women get backwards. They restrict first, which makes them more insulin resistant. Okay. The estrogen-stuck upstream driver looks like the liver and gut are not clearing estrogen efficiently. Now, the fix, y'all, is not balanced hormones. It's supporting estrogen metabolism through pathways that require specific nutrient cofactors, gut microbiome support, and liver detox capacity in a particular order. T3 downregulated upstream driver looks like your body intentionally reduce thyroid hormone conversion to conserve energy because it's perceiving scarcity. The fix is not take thyroid medication. It is signaling abundance to a system that's in shutdown mode. Now, can you Google how to restore insulin sensitivity? Sure, of course. Will the protocol you find, though, account for your nervous system state, your estrogen metabolism, your thyroid function, your gut health, and which needs to be addressed first? No, because that requires real-time interpretation of your specific pattern, not general information. Specific sequencing based on which system is leading for you right now. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Perimenopause, menopause, excuse me, is not a problem that you solve once and forget about. Okay? But it's also not constant chaos requiring perpetual intervention. It's a transition with predictable pressure points, and navigating those pressure points requires interpretation, not constantly, but at the moments when load changes. So let me show you what I mean by that. When you identify your lead system, address it in the right sequence and establish stability, that stability holds. Okay? You sleep better. Your energy is consistent. Your weight stabilizes. Your brain works. Your symptoms quiet. That's not temporary. That's your body functioning in her current pattern. Where interpretation becomes necessary again is only when the load shifts, whether that's a major work deadline, a sick parent, maybe sleep disruption from traveling, could be grief, maybe relationship stress, or sustained caregiving without adequate rest. Y'all, these are not small blips. They are metabolic pressure that can shift which system leads, okay? Now, the difference between managing that alone and having interpretation, y'all, without interpretation, you don't catch the shift until symptoms escalate. You are weeks into sleep disruption before you realize your cortisol pattern returned. And by then, you're exhausted, you're inflamed, the weight is back up, and you're trying to troubleshoot while already in breakdown mode. It takes months to stabilize again, and the cycle repeats. With interpretation, you catch the shift as it is happening, okay? You see the early signals, sleep quality changing, energy dropping, old patterns creeping back in. You adjust before full breakdown occurs. Stability is maintained through the transition, not lost and then painfully rebuilt. This is what I mean by interpretation being ongoing. Not that you need constant help because your body is constantly shifting, but that transitions are predictable, and catching them early prevents the chaos, okay? Think of it like this. Excuse me. Your body in a stable pattern is like a well-maintained house. It functions, systems work, life happens inside without constant crisis. But when the foundation shifts, when load changes, cracks appear, okay? Without someone who knows how to read structural stress, you don't see the cracks until the ceiling is sagging. With interpretation, you catch the foundation shift early. You reinforce before damage occurs. The house stays stable. That's the difference. Information tells you what cortisol does. Interpretation tells you cortisol is leading again. Here's why, and here's what needs to adjust before this becomes a 6-month backslide. Information tells you estrogen metabolism pathways, right? It tells you about that. Interpretation tells you your clearance is compromised again because of this specific stressor, or and when addressing it now, not 3 months from now, when your symptoms are unbearable, is what we need to do. Information tells you insulin resistance is bad. Interpretation tells you the load you just took on is shifting you back toward insulin dominance, and we're catching it at week 2, not month 6. Information is static. Interpretation is responsive. And a lot of women are drowning in information while starving for someone who can read their pattern as it shifts. Y'all, this is why the Nourish and Flow Circle community, online community, is not structured like a course you complete. It's structured like ongoing access to interpretation at the moments when load changes, okay? Because your archetype in January after a stable fall isn't your archetype in April after a stressful work quarter, okay? Let that sink in for a second. Your pattern when you're sleeping well is not your pattern when you're not. And trying to self-manage those transitions alone, without real-time feedback, without someone who can see what you can't see in your own pattern, is why capable women lose stability. Not because stability is not possible, but because maintaining stability through transitions requires interpretation that a lot of women just cannot provide for themselves. Listen, if you've been trying to solve perimenopause like a puzzle, find the right protocol, follow it perfectly, get results. The reason it's not working isn't because you have not found the right protocol yet. It's because you're trying to apply fixed solutions to responsive patterns, okay? Your body is adaptive, okay? And adaptive systems need interpretation at transition points. Not constantly, but when the load shifts, okay? The what and the why, that's what I just gave you, okay? You now understand that archetypes are responsive, not random, that leadership shifts follow predictable patterns based on load, that order determines whether interventions create stability or instability, that hybrid patterns exist and their competing demands explain why nothing works. The how and the why, or the how and the when, that's where interpretation comes in, okay? The gut hormone pattern quiz, which is free, okay, is designed to reveal which system is leading your pattern right now, which systems are competing, and what that specific pattern is actually costing you, all right? It is not generic perimenopause, menopause advice, your actual metabolic pattern. Now, the link to the gut hormone pattern quiz is in the description below. And if you're already clear that you're running a hybrid pattern, that you can't see your own system clearly enough to sequence correctly, that you want to maintain stability through this transition instead of constantly rebuilding after breakdown, our free community, y'all, the Nourish and Flow Circle, okay, is where interpretation happens at the moments when it matters most, in real time. Y'all, not courses you complete, not protocols to follow by yourself, okay? Interpretation when load shifts. Adjustment before symptoms escalate. Stability maintained through transitions, because stability in perimenopause, menopause is not about preventing your body from adapting. It's about interpreting those adaptations as they happen and adjusting before breakdown occurs. That's how you navigate this phase without losing years to guessing. But thank you so much for joining me today on Wind Down Wednesday.